Baltimore has shattered the per capita murder rate in 2015, 2017, and 2019. Is crime and seafood all that Baltimore has to offer? The answer is no. But you couldn't tell that based on the statistics, based on the murder rate, based on the way that our city looks. That is why it is pivotal for folks to get out and vote. It is pivotal for folks to become involved in this primary. Primary's coming up. We're going to be talking about it every day. We're going to be talking about the elections that are coming up every day here at On Fire Television and the DiamondKShow.com. I will be joined later on today by Roya Hanna, who is running to be Baltimore City State's Attorney. She's a Democrat. And I'm looking forward to talking with her because I want to know what she thinks can be done in the Baltimore City State's Attorney's office. When we talk about the murder rate, when we talk about crime in the city, one of the offices that are, held accountable for this is the State's Attorney's office. So I want to go through this process. When a crime is committed or the police are called, the police come, they arrest somebody, then the State's Attorney's office gets involved, right? So I want to talk about this process a little bit with Roya Hanna. She is a experienced attorney. She's not somebody that's new to this. She's been doing it and doing it at a high level. So we're going to talk about that and obviously talk about Marilyn Mosby, the current occupant of the Baltimore City State's Attorney's office, and Roya Hanna, who wants to be the big dog in Baltimore, the top crime fighter in Baltimore, I guess. She is a defense attorney, a former prosecutor, and a gun violence prevention advocate. She is Roya Hanna, and she will be our guest today on the Diamond K Show. Welcome back. You're with Diamond K in here, of course, onfiretelevision.com, the diamondkshow.com. As you know, this is election season. The primaries are upon us, and I am excited to talk about Baltimore's races and Maryland and, of course, the country. And when we talk about Baltimore, we obviously need to talk about the race for Baltimore City's state's attorney. And obviously, Marilyn Mosby is in that position now, but it is a contested race. And I am pleased to be joined by one of the candidates. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
I am wonderful. Please introduce yourself to the viewers.
I am Roya Hanna, and I'm running for Baltimore City State's Attorney because I believe that we can make changes and make the city better.
All right. Okay. I am glad to speak with you. A lot of things with regards to the city that need changing. What can be done with regards to the Baltimore City State's Attorney's office? How can that affect change in Baltimore?
Well, I think the most important thing that we need to do is to reduce the homicide numbers. Over the past 7 years, we've had the highest per capita homicide in Baltimore's history. And so first and foremost has to be a commitment to reducing violent crime and gun crime. Under my administration, gun crime and violent crime will mean jail time. I also have a lot of programs that are designed to help people who have found themselves involved with the criminal justice system because of substance abuse issues or mental health issues, and ways to deal with low-level offenders. But first and foremost, we have to tackle the violence.
Yeah, absolutely. The violence is an issue. So this just are you saying that the way to clean things up is just to have more people go to jail?
No, not necessarily. I think there's a lot of different things that the criminal justice system can do. One of my programs to handle low level offenders is community service. And the reason I want to have community service programs is because I believe it is a good deterrent for people. And it is a way to hold offenders accountable without giving them the life altering consequences of a conviction. But there's also lots of other studies that show things like for every dollar spent rehabbing vacant lots, you save $26 in gun crime costs. It has a depreciable difference on the number of gun assaults in a particular area when you just do things like fixing vacant lots.
Yes, absolutely. That is true. Now, with regards to your experience, what is your background as far as your law practice?
Well, for the first 3 years out of law school, I worked for the National Center for Community Prosecution and Gun Violence Prevention. And what I did there was I traveled around the country studying community prosecutions and studying gun violence prevention programs and teaching other prosecutors' offices how to implement those programs. I then spent 12 years at the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. For 9 of those years, I handled murders and shootings. And for the 4 years that I was in homicide, I never lost a murder trial. Since leaving the state's attorney's office, I've been a criminal defense attorney and seen some of the problems that my clients have, and also the problems that uh, the state's attorney's office has with regards to providing discovery and making sure that the defendant's constitutional rights are protected.
Well, those are things that definitely are needed as far as experience with regards to that. So, what do you believe the relationship should be between the state's attorney's office and the Baltimore City Police Department?
Well, I believe that the two organizations have to work together. And I believe that the way to restore trust between the community and the police department is through both collaboration and accountability. I'm one of the only candidates who has personally prosecuted a retired police officer. I tried and convicted him for shooting an unarmed person. I was prosecuting a double homicide committed by a police officer when I left the state's attorney's office. I think that you have to work together and at the same time hold them accountable.
Yes, yeah, and that is something that we were talking about rebuilding the relationship between the community and the police. Those accountability pieces are definitely something that is lacking and needs some improvement. What about with the city hall and the mayor's office specifically? What should the relationship be with the state's attorneys?
Well, I think that again, they have to work together. They have to be on the same page as far as a gun violence prevention plan that is effective. And like I indicated earlier, one of my things is you have to clean up the neighborhood, and reducing blight also reduces violent crime. And so I think that the state's attorney's office has to work with the mayor and city council to make sure that blight is a central issue. We need the mayor and city council's office to support our small businesses. I have a community business task force plan that I intend to implement, but without our small businesses, the city will not thrive. We need to support those type of organizations and to do everything that we can to address the underlying root causes of crime in this city.
Now, with regards to the current state's attorney, who is facing a lot of allegations, do you think that something like that takes away from what can be done for the city, or do you think that the office is large enough to handle this level of distraction?
Well, I am concerned about the level of distraction. And quite frankly, the office is not in the position that it was 8 years ago. When Ms. Mosby took over, there were 217 prosecutors in that office. At last count, there were 167. They have lost 50 prosecutors over the course of her tenure. And those prosecutors are struggling to handle the cases, even though crime, at least the number of cases that the state's attorney's office charges, have decreased dramatically. We are charged, or the state's attorney's office is charging 50% less felonies, not just the low level crimes that aren't being prosecuted, but the 50% less felonies. And I am concerned that Miss Mosby may be distracted by these issues. And I'm more concerned that maybe her relationship and her ability to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office to get gun offenders off the street may be impacted by the fact that she's being prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office.
So you were talking earlier about, let's call low level crimes. So what do you classify as a low level crime?
Well, I think possession, loitering, trespassing, those sorts of things are considered low level crimes.
So in instances where we have citizens accused of these crimes, are these situations that these people need to go to jail?
No. I think, that for possession cases, we need to provide them with services in order to help them get off drugs and to rebuild their lives. What we've seen since the state's attorney's office stopped prosecuting low level or possession cases
Right.
is a depreciable increase in the number of overdose deaths in our city, which was already high. And we have to save people's lives. Like, that is the entire reason I'm running, is to save both homicide victims' lives as well as drug users' lives. We have to recognize that they do need help, and they often need a catalytic force to get them to get the help that they need. If they were just going to get the help they on their own without any sort of incentive or they would have done it already. But often they need somebody else to say, no, this has reached a head. You need to stop. We need to get you off drugs, and we need to help you rebuild your life.
Yeah. A lot of folks have thrown things around, say Mosby is soft on crime. How is your plan different from what she has already been doing?
Well, I think I would, like I indicated earlier, start prosecuting low-level offenders in order to get them the help and resources that they need,
Right.
in order to hold them accountable through community servants and deterrence programs. But more importantly, I intend to be harsher on violent crime. There is a very big difference between somebody who gets involved in the criminal justice system because of mental health issues or substance abuse issues, and somebody who goes out and terrorizes our community by committing these violent crimes and these gun crimes. And we have to not treat everyone who's involved in the criminal justice system as the same, but to recognize those that are threats to our community versus those that just need help, and treat them differently.
Right. And I think that is so important because let's do this. Let's talk about when the police are called. Police come, arrest is made. What happens next? When does your office, or when would your office get involved, and how?
So currently, when the police arrest a suspect, they take them down to the central booking unit and they write up charges. And a prosecutor at that point in time typically reviews the charges just to make sure that the police have alleged all of the elements, and they will write a bail recommendation. One of the big things that I plan on doing in changing that initial process is not just to have the prosecutors review to make sure the allegations are there, but actually to review the case to make sure that it is strong and that the case can be won. So I want to make sure that all the cameras that are in the area have actually been pulled, that the witnesses' statements have been gathered. When I was in homicide, we would often get called down in the middle of the night to go through and to help the police build the case, to make sure all the questions are answered so that the case was viable and could be won. I think we need to shift our resources so that we are reviewing those cases instantly when evidence can still be gathered, instead of waiting 3 or 4 months down the road when it is almost impossible to fix. And that will also have the other effect of making sure that cases that the state's attorney's office can't prosecute are not charged. The last time that the state's attorney's office was putting their numbers on their website in September of 2020, they showed that for about 400 felony convictions, they had dismissed 1,300 felony cases. So it was almost a 4 to 3 to 1 ratio. And if the cases are going to be dismissed, then they shouldn't be charged. Those are people who spent a year in jail waiting for their case to be heard, and then it was just dismissed and it should have been handled at the beginning.
Right. So you're suggesting that involving the prosecutors earlier will help with things, and I agree, and you're right. There has to be that collaboration between police, between City Hall. Your relationship. Well, Marilyn Mosby does not seem to have a good relationship with the Baltimore City Police Department, and I trace that back to trace. Did I say the word trace? Trace is an excellent word, right? Trace, task force, trace. Like there's so much wrong with Baltimore City Police Department, and we have some great officers. And I think systemically there's a disconnect somewhere. But for whatever reason, the relationship that she has with the police department is not a good one. And then because they have to work so closely together, there's animosity, there's disconnect. How good is your relationship with the Baltimore City Police Department?
Well, I worked in the state's attorney's office for approximately 12 years, and a lot of the officers who I dealt with at the time are now in command staff positions or more senior individuals. So I think that those relationships will help to make change. The main issue I see between the state's attorney's office and the police department at the moment is lack of communication. When Miss Mosby announced that she was no longer going to be prosecuting drug possession, the police commissioner was asked a couple of days later, well, what does possession mean? And he said he had no idea. If you're going to make such a permanent shift in policy, you need to have that communication between the state's attorney's office and the police department to make sure that everyone is on the same page and to make sure that people's rights are being maintained and that everyone understands what the plan is.
Yes, I agree with that. And so tell me this: the job that Marilyn Mosby has done thus far, on a scale of 1 to 5, what do you rate it?
2. I think there are pretty serious problems in that office. Like I indicated, she's lost 50 prosecutors. That shows a lack of management ability, a lack of leadership ability, and the cases that are being handled by these individuals, there also is an inability of young prosecutors to present the cases effectively. I don't think she is doing a good job on that in that respect. I do think there are good things that she has done. She has greatly expanded the community outreach program, and I do think that that is important. So that's why I would give her more than a 0, because there are positive changes that she has put in place as well. But overall, I think she is failing the office and failing the city and failing to keep us safe.
What would you do to retain the attorneys? Because it has often been talked about with the folks leaving the office for whatever reason. What could be done, and what would you do to keep those attorneys there?
Well, I think a lot of attorneys will come back with new leadership in the office. I get calls from former prosecutors weekly saying that they would love to come back. They just know that they can't function the way that they want to with this leadership, and to focus on prosecution. So often, that is kind of the last thing that the office seems to be focused on. They more seem to be focused on policy and legislative directives and all of those things. But we need a prosecutor who's going to prosecute cases and who's going to put the needs of the prosecutor, the individual prosecutors who are going forward and trying these cases first, and to say that they will be given the resources that they need to do their job effectively.
What part of your journey do you think has prepared you most for this job?
Well, I think being a prosecutor is probably the thing that has prepared me most. But I also think that having that experience of training other prosecutors' offices and seeing what works and what has really impacted other cities is vital. You need somebody who doesn't just know this one particular area, who understands Baltimore because Baltimore is a unique place, but who
Definitely.
also understands the things that actually work around the country.
Definitely. I think that that is a important uh, important piece to look at, because while I did not agree with them bringing a person from another city to be in charge of the police department here, because this is a unique city, I do understand that we still need to look at other areas and see what has worked and what hasn't worked, and for Baltimore to put their spin on it, because this is a unique city. Is this the benchmark for success in your office? Would be what, in one term, what would you use as the barometer?
Getting the homicide rate down. That is the homicide and violent crime rate is the only thing that matters. It is the only thing that truly indicates success or failure of a state's attorney's office.
And with that being said, that's why that partnership between the police and the office is so vital, because they work hand in hand. So when you have officers, let's say that they're arresting folks that, I don't know, there's not enough evidence, or there's it's a case that you can't win, right? And you decide to not pursue it. What How do you think that, how does that affect the officers?
Hopefully, it will be a training tool. And, like I said, I do intend to have those cases reviewed thoroughly at the outset of the case so that we can tell officers what they need to do to improve the case better next time. You know, I think that the majority of police officers do want to build quality cases. They also are suffering from a lack of training and a lack of experience. Even
Yeah.
after I left the state's attorney's office, for 6 months to a year, I used to get calls from officers saying, uh, do I need a warrant for this? How do I handle this situation? Do you think this is enough? What can I do? They want to do better, but they do not have the relationship with the state's attorney's office at the moment to really improve. And that is something that has to change.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that training piece is critical, and you're right. I think that in a lot of instances, folks are being arrested that should not be,
Right.
and that definitely. I just They've often said that there's not, but there has to be some type of a quota system, or some type of a benefit for taking people through the process, because there are a lot of instances where folks are arrested that should not be, and then, or they're introduced to the system when there was another option, and then folks get in the pipeline a lot of times that just should not be. And so you have a campaign that you have announced, and what made you do that? What made you join this race?
Because I think I can change the city. I think that I have a unique approach to crime that recognizes, you know, the lock 'em up policies of the past don't always work,
Right.
and neither do policies that just say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about crime. There
Right.
are things that we can do about crime. There are things that have worked around the country. And I think bringing those practical, common sense, innovative ideas to the city will change things. We can reduce this problem of crime in our city. I know we can because I have talked to people in every neighborhood, and everyone is just looking for somebody to tackle the problem head on, to not shrink and from the issue or try to sugarcoat it or to say, oh, I have this conviction rate or that conviction rate or whatever, but to just do the work. And that's why I want to do this, because I just want to do the work.
So as far as COVID, how has COVID affected your business?
It was it was a stressful first couple of months. The phone wasn't ringing nearly as much as uh, it was before that. Um, COVID has affected criminal defense attorneys in that our we have courts have been closed, so we haven't been able to close as many cases. Our cases are now taking a lot longer to try. Our clients are sitting in jail a lot more. It's it's been an interesting experience. I wouldn't recommend it for the future, but it's been
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So I suppose that we're on the other side of this somewhat 2 years in, and so campaigning will be a little bit better than it's been, say, in 2020.
Right.
Uh, so what are you looking forward to as far as this campaign season?
Just talking to voters. That's what I enjoy the most. I've been going to community association meetings and just getting out there and talking to a bunch of different people. And honestly, it's been inspirational. Everyone knows that we have more good people in this city than bad, but the willingness of people to step up and to help out and to make the city better has really been heartwarming.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. There's definitely more good people than bad, and a lot of folks just want the city to be better.
Mhm.
And what kind of response have you been getting from folks? Like, what are they saying?
They all agree we need change. There were very few people who were like, no, things are great. Things have been
Right,
working.
right.
Nobody says that. And they all love the approach of dealing with violent criminals one way and helping people that need help. And I really think that this is going to be a great race and we'll be able to make some good changes to the office.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing some debates between you and some of your counterparts. How do you feel about that?
I'm looking forward to debates.
Yeah, yeah. So it's always good when you get the candidates on the stage and you're able to kind of see what everybody has to say.
Right.
How can folks get involved with your campaign and help you bring this change to Baltimore?
We're always looking for volunteers. We have a bunch now, but we can always use more. My website is Roya, Roya, Hanna, HANNA.com. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook under Elect Roya Hanna. And just send me a message or an email, and I will happily put you on the volunteer list and get out there.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to speaking with you again. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me. Uh,
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, this is going to be an interesting race. There's a lot going on in the city and in the race. Definitely, please don't be a stranger.
Okay.
All right, have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, that was Roya Hanna, and I really liked some of the things that she said and some of the ideas. Definitely, we know that the city is in need of some change. There's been a lot of turmoil in that office, and I don't know. I don't know what what the citizens are going to do and who they're going to select. There's so many factors that go into play with regards to the election and the such. The media has played a big part in Marilyn Mosby's story, but you cannot deny the crime rate We cannot deny the murder rate and some of these negative things that Baltimore has been dealing with since before she's been around. But it has definitely increased since then. Definitely, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok at The Diamond K Show. Of course, onfiretelevision.com, thediamondkshow.com. And I will get to you. I love going back and forth with folks with social media. So I don't want people to think that I get frustrated with it, because I do not. I am here for the drama and I want all the smoke. I'll see you guys tomorrow.